This is CJ Baker, and this is the ongoing history of protest music. So, as mentioned previously, I'm part of a music community, and I just recorded a couple of videos connected to a 1994 deep dive. So, I released a video in connection with my top 25 favorite albums of 1994 and my top 25 songs of 94. So I decided I'll follow it up since this channel is mostly connected to the historical developments of protest music. I decided I'll also record a video in connection with my 10 best protest albums of 94 and 10 best protest songs of 94. So this is similar to what I did during a 1984 deep dive. So we'll get right into the 10 best protest albums, and this will be presented in alphabetical order. So album number 10, so Jello Biafra and Mojo Nixon, Prairie Home Invasion. So this album is a collaboration between one of the godfathers of political hardcore music, the lead singer of the Dead Kennedys, Jello Biafra, and the late great underappreciated satirical rockabilly artist Mojo Nixon. And Nixon's most well-known track is probably Elvis is Everywhere. As expected, the album is irrelevant and it's full of satirical wit. So one of the album's highlights is a rollicking take on the classic Phil Ochs protest tune, Love Me, I'm a Liberal. And this rendition of it includes updated lyrics. So the next album by Consolidated is Business of Punishment. So this is the fourth album from the political hip hop influenced industrial group. And back in the 90s, Consolidated did have some success on college radio, and they did receive some airplay on the Toronto alternative station 102.1 The Edge. So the band was considered confrontational and polarizing, and at times they were criticized for being overly self-righteous and dogmatic. But personally, I appreciated that the band wore their politics on the sleeve and they really forced their listeners to confront serious issues. Also, for Canadian music fans and possibly non-Canadian music fans, it's interesting to note that the excellent Canadian power pop group Slowed makes reference to Consolidated in their tune Coax Me. So just a little bit of a useless tidbit there. So we'll now go to our next album, which is by The Coup, Genocide and Juice. So 1994 was an excellent year for socially conscious and political rap. And it doesn't get much more political than The Coup. I mean, maybe Consolidated, but they're a little bit more rap adjacent. So the title of the sophomore album by the political hip hop group is an obvious play on Snoop Dogg's Gin and Juice. So it features the radical lyrics and satirical wit of Boots Riley. So it's gripping storytelling and funky grooves. It really makes for an exhilarating listening experience. So the next album, so another socially conscious rap album. So there was a lot of those in 1994. So it's by Diggable Planets, Blowout Comb. So this album was musically darker and lyrically more political than the 1993 debut, Reaching, a New Refutation of Time and Space. So this album, it contains a strong Black empowerment message, and it blends really well with these cool jazzy arrangements. So this album is important in the development of socially conscious hip hop. It's also an album that I really enjoyed. Like it was a really strong 4 stars. And even though it didn't quite make my top 25, it was in my top 30, probably about 29 or so. So the next album, once again, another socially conscious rap album. So it's by Gang Starr, Hard to Earn. And I also talked about this album in my top 25 album video. So I love this album, a really strong 4.5 stars. So this album is a bit edgier and combative than the rap duo's previous releases. But as I mentioned in the previous video, it's still jam-packed with jazzy goodness and insightful social commentary. So the album does address serious issues such as gun violence and systemic oppression and racism. And they do some tunes such as Tons of Guns and Code of the Streets. So the next album is by Heavens to Betsy, Calculated. So this one is not a rap album. This is a Riot Grrrl album, which is also a very much a political genre of music. So this is the only studio album by the Riot Grrrl duo, which features Corin Tucker, who of course found even greater success as part of Sleater-Kinney. So along with addressing the standard Riot Grrrl issues such as sexual harassment and misogyny, the album also features the tune Right Girl, which is a bit ahead of its time because it refers to white privilege several years before that terminology entered the popular vernacular. So the next album is Whole, Live Through This. So the sophomore album by the Courtney Love fronted band. This is maybe not exactly Riot Grrrl, but I would say it's Riot Grrrl adjacent. And I do love this album. It was a 5 star album for me. And I believe it was number 6 on my top 25 album list. So this album, Courtney Love effectively expresses themes of female empowerment, and she offers insightful commentary on important issues such as body image, gender stereotypes, and sexual assault. So the next album by the Manic Street Preachers, The Holy Bible. So this is another album that made my top 25 list, but this album is the perfect balance between the personal and the political. And as mentioned in the previous 25 album video, this is the band's last album prior to the disappearance of their presumed dead rhythm guitarist and lyricist, Richie Edwards. And one thing I did forget to mention in the previous video, he was basically, when he went missing, he was 27 years old. So he's considered a part of the infamous 27 Club. So as I mentioned in the previous video, some of the strongest tunes on the album are the ones that really express the mental state of Edwards. And even there, you could argue that addressing mental illness could be considered a social issue. But the album also has several politically direct tunes that deals with issues such as American consumerism and British imperialism. So the next album by Nas is Illmatic. And once again, this was on my top 25 list. It was number 3 on that list. And it's an absolute classic. It's mind-boggling to think that Nas was only 20 years old at the time that he recorded this album. But even at that young age, he was already establishing himself as one of the goats of hip hop. And he did that by creating a landmark album that taps into his personal narrative of dealing with the gritty realities of living in the inner city. So this is an example where sometimes the personal is political. So the biographical lyrics are gritty and compelling, and Nas's flow is impeccable. So the next album, so once again, another socially conscious rap album. So this is the final album on this list. It's by Organized Confusion, Stress, The Extinction Agenda. So this also made my list of the top 25 albums. So this is the sophomore follow-up to the rap duo's excellent 1991 self-titled debut. So this album is equally excellent, and I think I mentioned it made my top 25 album list, but it does have a darker tone than the debut. So both Prince Paul and Pharoah Monch are skilled wordsmiths who effectively explore themes of pending human extinction in a way you can still bop to. So that concludes the list of the top 10 protest albums of 1994. So what are your favorite protest albums of 1994? Feel free to protest the list in your comments. And if you like this video and you want me to continue making more of them, please like and subscribe. And you can also feel free to check out my recently relaunched Patreon at Ongoing History of Protest Music. And you can feel free to check out my website, Ongoing History of ProtestSongs.com. So thanks for watching, and please stay safe. If I drink concentrated OJ, can I think consolidated's okay? It's not the bad I hate, it's their fans. 3 cans of water perverts me.